Hello, Mermaid. So it's Easter, and I wanted to give some advice on how you can incorporate a regular Easter celebration into your pagan life. Now, I'm not talking about celebrating Ostara, because a lot of us already do that, and it is the pagan holiday that is hosted around this time, and it has a lot of the same imagery as Easter. However, it is generally celebrated somewhat before Easter, and many of us have family members who either are Christian or who, for whatever reason, take part in a traditional Easter celebration. And I believe that it's always good to add meaning to things when you can. So, yeah. So let's look at the different days within typical Christian Easter celebration. And you have Palm Sunday, which basically celebrates that the people, so basically Jesus comes riding into town on a donkey, and people tosses palm leaves in celebration at his feet. This was a common thing in the ancient world to celebrate heroes' returns and so on and so forth. So the main focus on this day is hope and celebration. And if you look at Easter, you can see that it's sort of like a mini cycle in and of itself. It starts on a very high note on celebration, hope, and renewal, and then it goes the circle and goes all around to death and despair, and then back into celebration. So, how you can see Palm Sunday is like a celebration of renewal, a celebration of the return of the male divinity, and you can also see it as a day of hope, because here we have this figure who very much stands for hope. You have to remember that now, of course, the stories were not written exactly at his time. The Bible is actually written. Sorry if I bump in the camera. This Bible is actually written about 100 to 200 years after Jesus' life. But around that time in antiquity, you had a ruling class who were extremely wealthy, just like you have today, but to even more extent. And then you had a lower class who were extremely downtrodden. And the message that Jesus came with was that everybody deserved respect, that even the downtrodden might be even more holy than their rich masters. So, for whatever reason, if you go to church or a celebration on Palm Sunday, you can see it as a celebration of renewed hope, a call for justice, and as a return of the male divinity. And you can also do rituals towards these things on these days. Now, moving on. The next day, I am not completely sure what it's called in English. It's the Tuesday before. How is it pronounced in English? Thursday? But anyway, the day when Jesus gets arrested. Now, it is celebrated as the day of the First Communion, and a lot of Christians go to, at least Catholics, go to church on this Thursday to celebrate that event. Now, first of all, I want to say that communion is not bad for pagans. It is a ritual that, first of all, is very cleansing. And also, it is a way to honor male divinity. Because while Christians cannot recognize other uh, gods, pagans definitely can see the Christian god as a god or a face of male divinity. Now, also, what do these days stand for? Well, first of all, it's a day of betrayal. And in the typical story, now there are some apocrypha that disputes this, but in the typical story, Judas betrays Jesus and he is arrested on this day after he has had a final meal with his disciples. And this is very similar to what we can find in a lot of different pagan religions. Let's go to the Egyptian one, where Seth betrays Osiris and kills him. And we can basically, and in fact, the whole story of Easter is very similar to the story of Osiris, Isis, and Seth. Because basically, you have Osiris, who is the king, a very celebrated king. And then his brother, his second in command, he's the first of his people, betrays him and kills him. And then Isis brings him back to life. And he becomes a king in the underworld, promises salvation to the dead. So the story are very, very similar. And so, how can you incorporate this? Well, first of all, you can see it as a part of the celebrations around Isis and Osiris, but you can also basically see it as a miniature Samhain, if you will, because really this is what it is for the Christians. It is the day when the God gets ready to descend into the underworld and suffer for his people. It has the exactly same energies as Samhain has when the god is sacrificed to bring new life to the land. So you can definitely see it like that. And like I said, communion is not a bad thing. So basically, I would see it as a day to celebrate the sacrificial deities. Now, by sacrificial deities, I mean deities who are sacrificed and suffers for the good of the people or to renew the land. There are many such sacrificial deities. Prometheus is a good example. He gave fire to humankind. Basically, there the story goes that Zeus and Prometheus looks down at the earth, and Prometheus says, "Look how the people are suffering. They need to have development. Let's give them the knowledge of how to use fire." And Zeus said, "No, if they get more evolved, they will eventually get to the point where they can challenge Olympus." So he forbids it, but Prometheus goes and gives fire to the humans anyway, and as a result, Zeus chains him to a rock where he is, where his, I think it was his liver, might be his kidneys, anyway, some of his internal organs are eaten by a giant eagle each day, and of course, him being a god, he regenerates so that he can eat it the next day, and yeah, we get the point here. Other sacrificial deities are Kore and for Persephone. And here is also a story that is very much similar to the story of Jesus. Basically, the story here goes that you had Kore or Persephone, who is the daughter of Demeter, and she was out on the field plucking flowers one day. And Hades, Lord of the Underworld, sees her and he kidnaps her and forces her to marry him. Now, the matter is extremely sad, and she refuses to let there be summer. So the gods get together and they try to nudge her to do it, and Zeus tries to order her, and she just says no. Eventually, then Zeus says enough of this bullshit. So he tells Hades that you have to give Persephone back, but since you are married, you only have to give her back half the year. And that is how they then saw, this is how the ancient Greeks saw it as the reason for there being winter and summer. So basically, in the autumn, Persephone would sacrifice herself and become the queen of the underworld. And then at spring, she would rise from the dead and be with the living. You have so many stories like this, and like I said, a sacrificial deity are those that somehow are sacrificed to make the world go round, basically. And you can definitely make both Long Friday and this Thursday before Easter that I don't remember the English name of into celebrations of such sacrificial deities, and also to a lesser extent as a way to celebrate and be thankful for the many people who have sacrificed their lives, and often at great personal suffering, for others. You can, for example, put up a shrine and put up a candle for war heroes, or people who have in other ways done very, very dangerous things that could affect them very badly, and pay the ultimate price to help others. I'll just move this around slightly so I can check something under it because it got very hot. I have my computer on my thighs. Anyway, so to summarize, the Thursday before Easter is both day to celebrate communion with the gods, and it's also a way to celebrate the willing sacrifice of the sacrificial deities, and also the honor the spirits of those that have gone the same path. Then we have Long Friday, which marks Christ's suffering, and this is also a day that a lot of Christians go to church. Basically, we all know the story. He was crucified, suffered the entire day, and then died after the sky had gone dark, and so on and so forth. So, in pagan terms, how can we incorporate this day? Well, first of all, if you're going to a church and so on, you can easily see this the same as Persephone's suffering at leaving her mother, at having to die to become the queen of the underworld again, Prometheus' suffering to bring fire to the humans. Any of these paganisms, because if you look at the story of Jesus, it's so similar to so many pagan religions that you can easily just swap the names in your head. Or even just see Jesus as one more, like I do, as one more of these sacrificial deities. So you can do that. For rituals yourself, rituals to honor sacrificial deities would be a good idea. And also, it is a day of reflection for basically a reflection of those who sacrifice for others. Also, you can see it as a day for cleansing, because that is really what the whole shebang within Christianity is about. It is about you having original sin, and then God sending His a representation of Himself, manifestation of Himself if you will, to take on the punishment that that sin comes with, thereby offering a path of cleansing. And as such, even if we might not as pagans believe in original sin, and might not believe in sin at all, many of us do believe it is quite possible to get into things that needs to be cleansed, negative energy, negative feelings, and cleansing away um, situations, asking for forgiveness. Basically, it's a day to do cleansing rituals. And it is a day of reflection because, again, this is very much like a mini Samhain, where you have deity descending into the underworld. And it can easily be a day that you can use to remember the dead. And then, of course, we have Easter morning, which when we again have gone full circle and we are again back to celebration. Because Jesus is dead for 3 days and uh, then he rises again. And this very much mirrors the way the god dies and is then reborn, how Persephone becomes the queen of the underworld and then are reborn. Then also how Osiris is killed and then comes alive again. And first of all, again, it is a day of celebration. It is a day to uh, honor the afterlife. It is a way to honor these deities who have similar stories, definitely. And again, like I said, it's a way to honor new hope, new beginnings, new life. So, I mean, if you have to go to church with your family, it is very easy to think of these various pagan stories that are similar to the pagan ones, and then hold them in your heart when you are in church, because then the celebration becomes meaningful to you too. You just don't sit there because your family, out of respect for your family, but you can feel the religious significance as well. And of course, like I said, you can do rituals yourself towards this extent, basically to these things that are similar on a day where the energies for such things are definitely flourishing. Now, moving on very quickly to the basically the non-religious part of Easter and how you can incorporate that. Now, of course, these various things are very much borrowed from pagan backgrounds, so chances are you have already incorporated at least some of them in your Ostara celebrations, but let's go with them anyway. Eggs. Eggs is a very powerful symbol within paganism. It symbolizes the return to of life. It's a new life, new beginnings. For example, egg-shaped stone very much signifies beginnings and vitality. And as such, they become very powerful symbols of both the god within the state he's seen to be in at Ostara, as this young man who is returning to power, and also under of the return of spring and basically symbolism of life itself. So it's very common around these times. Basically, the practice of painting eggs and displaying them around the house is definitely a pagan tradition and can definitely be used as decorations on your altar. The same with an Easter egg hunt, where eggs, chocolate eggs, and so on are hidden. It can definitely be seen as a ritual to celebrate the return of spring. Also, when you see the concept of Easter bunny, well, a hare is very much also a powerful symbol um, within paganism. The hare is a symbol of the god and very much the young god, the very energetic god, and as such can be used as a representation of the god at this time of year. A haircut is also a representation of the fool within the tarot. It represents the young, carefree, emerging joy, those kinds of things, and definitely is a good. I'm also giving a chocolate here to someone as a gift, for example, can very much have the meaning of giving them a symbolism of young, uh, vital masculinity, and also again it is a representation of the new beginning, new life. So it is a celebration of spring, because really that is what Easter have been in most pre-Christian countries, and also in many religions that are not Abrahamic. Around this time of year, one have some sort of celebration that celebrates the return of spring. And really, that is what it is. It's a celebration of a return to a return of life. That life returns from death, because often winter is seen as death, and then spring as the renewed life. And it's a celebration that winter is no over, death is no over, and we can look forward to new life. And this is things that can easily be incorporated into a pagan worldview that will give Easter time and Easter celebrations of your friends and family that you might take part in, and also the general time of year, lot more meaning. So yeah, this has been my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Blessed be and happy Easter.